philanthropist, a stuntsman, and clearly one of the world's most flamboyant and successful entrepreneurs. It's such a pleasure to have with us Sir Richard Branson. Thanks so much for being with us here on NDTV.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you.
You once famously said the quickest way to become a millionaire is to start as a billionaire and invest in an airline. Do you actually believe in that?
It has happened to a number of people, and obviously the skill is to try to do it differently and try to be successful. And at Virgin, fortunately, we've had 30 years of success in the airline business, but it doesn't always happen.
All right, it doesn't always happen, and it's clearly not happening as far as the Indian skies are concerned. You're stepping up your operations here in India at a time when the domestic industry is going through very, very turbulent times. Kingfisher Airlines, owned by Vijay Mallya, who many describe as India's Richard Branson, has had his license suspended. They're struggling to stay afloat. What would you say to a struggling aviation business?
Look, I think it's worth remembering that it wasn't so many years ago that you just had one state-owned airline dominating India. And at that time, airfares were very high. It was impossible for most people in India to travel. Since they've opened it up, there's lots of low-fare carriers, fantastic for the consumer, lots of people being able to fly who couldn't have afforded to fly before. So from a consumer point of view, fantastic. But you are going to get casualties, and it looks like at the moment Kingfisher's been one of those casualties.
Right.
But you know he's struggling to stay afloat, and all I can say is we wish him all the best, and obviously we wish his staff all the best in their struggle to try to keep the airline flying.
It is indeed a struggle, and you've put it across very well. And as an entrepreneur, is it always such a tough choice to make? Because on one hand, there are many who believe that the business is looking unviable. The airline has been bleeding, and there's no point just carrying on. He should fold up. On the other hand, of course, there are jobs at stake, and the fact that he did put in a lot, invested his own money into it, a lot of hard work and effort into building an airline, building a brand. Is it really a tough choice at this point?
I think it's a very tough choice. I think most people would have walked away 6 months ago and all the jobs would have been lost. I've noticed the enormous amount of criticism he's had over the last 6 months. And I'm slightly surprised by that, because at least he is fighting to try to keep the airline going. As I say, I hope for the sake of everybody who works there that he's successful, and wish him and all the staff all the best on that.
You mentioned criticism. Do you think part of the criticism is also because he is a flamboyant entrepreneur just like you? Do you think he's being unfairly targeted because of that?
I think flamboyance is dangerous. If you do sort of show your wealth too much, I think that's dangerous for any business person. I think, and I think you've got to get that balance right, and particularly in somewhere like India, where there are a lot of very poor people. So, so I think maybe when he looks back on his life, he might regret, being so perhaps overtly flamboyant in sort of showing off one's wealth, and I think that's what people have to avoid doing.
But what would you say to those who say that he fashions himself on Richard Branson?
Well, he's an entrepreneur. I think that what I like to think is that any wealth I create, I put into into sort of not-for-profit ventures, anyway, I wouldn't say we're absolutely identical. That's all I can say.
Right, absolutely. But you mentioned an important point. It's a country like India where, of course, we're seeing that this is a company where there are jobs at stake. We've had an unfortunate incident of an employee's wife, Kingfisher employee's wife, committing suicide. And then on the other hand, you have an entrepreneur who has that kind of a lifestyle. So do you think the two somewhere jar, and the criticism comes simply because people expect the entrepreneur to be more responsible?
Yeah, I suspect that's the situation. I mean, I think that he cannot be criticized for doing his best. I mean, he's used his own money to set up what was a very good airline, and took a big risk, and he's lost a lot of money. So I don't think anybody can criticize him for that. His lifestyle. I mean, people can criticize somebody for that, and I think I think generally entrepreneurs and people who've been successful have got to be careful to get a balance right in their lifestyle. I think you don't need the biggest cars or the biggest this or the biggest that. I think people gain respect from using their money in a constructive way to make people's lives better.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.